The latest staff changes for UCLA recruiting signals a change for DeShaun Foster and company. And yes, the stash is back.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for your support. Thanks for being an everydayer, even though we've had a busy personal week. Sorry about that. But we're going to tell you this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today, and you'll be given $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Where we get started today is, some interesting changes, some familiar faces, a new face, all leaving UCLA when it comes to recruiting. The big thing was UCLA wanted to pivot. The Bruins, whoever they hired to replace Chip Kelly, wanted to pivot in energy, a pivot in focus to change up the recruiting and the lack thereof under Chip Kelly for the high school, the energy around the program, which is what led the Bruins to hire DeShaun Foster. Of course, there's the early relationship already, the connection with the current players, but what bridges the gap going to future years? Big Ten Conference membership starts in August, and then the landscape of college football changes after that as the football playoff expands, recruiting in NIL only gets crazier. How do the Bruins keep up in a game they're already way, way behind? Well, DeShaun Foster's bringing that hope. He's bringing the energy. It seems like from the introductory press conference, he's out throwing recruiting. He's out throwing offers, whether it be to top players of 26, guys in 25. The Bruins are making things happen. And I'm not sure they can really fix 24. And considering they're already looking to change the NCAAs, or they're trying to move up the early signing period and day prior to the portal opening, there's a lot of things you have to keep up with when it comes to next year's recruiting at this very juncture. Well, the Bruins, according to Matt Zenitz at 24/7 Sports, Darren Usher's gone. He hasn't changed anything, at least on one of his social media profiles, but he is basically out going back to Oregon. So left Dan Lanning wanted to join Chip Kelly, get some Oregon connection there, and it seemed like Chip was at some point making a little bit of a half-hearted effort to improve things. He was trying to make moves, bring guys, get guys back like a Keegan Jones prior to him leaving, was able to bring in Darren Usher, who I thought would have made a bigger impact on UCLA, being a GM in his specific role with UCLA football. But then he's already going back to Oregon, which means that you're losing guys who you're bringing in, and DeShaun Foster wants new blood. He wants his own guys in the building. You bring in also Ethan Young, who's been the guy who's practically communicated to all the UCLA fans. Anytime recruiting has occurred, boom, boom, double boom, whether it's a big boom, a double, whatever it is, he was crucial in the director of those operations, right? He's no longer there. And I believe another person out, some of those according to 24/7 Sports, others according to Bruin Report, that UCLA, most importantly, is trying to get some new guys in there. And I'm not sure who is necessarily going to fill those roles, but that already signifies a change. Because you could have kept the status quo. You could have tried and kept going with what was, or bringing guys in. I'm not sure that that could have been a cohesive unit, but hey, you're already dealing with bringing in new coaches, keeping coaches. The idea, I thought, was continuity and keep it going. But obviously, for whatever it is, Ethan Young gone, switching things up, Usher going back to Oregon, that is already a sign of things moving. Now, you hope DeShaun Foster makes the right hires, and the biggest thing that could help him with his hiring, because I think defensively, Ikaika Malloy has been known, even from his Washington days, as a good recruiter, as a D coordinator, now as the head D coordinator for UCLA, if he stays in that role for years to come. He's a guy who is bringing in talent. I'm not sure UCLA will fail in that regard. It's more the X's and O's. We have to see how that plays out defensively and what the talent can be brought in. Offensively, it's about who does DeShaun Foster go after as the offensive coordinator. That is the big thing. I know you want to get the media, get everything together, bring in a whole new atmosphere, a new energy, breathe in the new and out with the old. That is Chip Kelly, whatever that was, trying to get that out. But what DeShaun Foster is trying to do is, hey, it's first starting with the offensive coordinator. That is the biggest thing that can help recruiting. You get some X's and O's, you get a good coach who can bring in some talent. DeShaun Foster already probably has a lot more charisma, I would assume, than Chip Kelly when it comes to the recruiting cycle. That alone can help move on beyond what Darren Usher could have done, what Ethan Young's done. Not that they didn't do good work, but he's trying to change the culture and not bring in just guys who have been in it or trying to change it, trying to bring in the new things. So the big thing is what I was looking at Bruin Report online is the idea is there's some guys in conversation. Now there's what some might say the home run hire or the big one, which would be Eric Bieniemy, who's been the guy who was with the Chiefs for a while, just with the Commanders, can't seemingly get any head coaching jobs, but an offensive mind, even visited the Chiefs prior to their Super Bowl win. And according to Bro Report that, hey, he is in contention, which would be a big name swing as an offensive coordinator. I'm not sure that's a long-term play, but that's a guy that will be here and could certainly get things going and humming, I would think, with the UCLA offense that brings back a lot of experience from 23 into 24, was looking to click if Chip Kelly had stayed, in my opinion. A lot better than it did in 23. Now there's also, according to Bro Report, Ted White potentially as someone who could be quarterback's coach, with someone who was just hired in Billy Fessler as a quarterback's coach. What's it going to go when you're circling? Are they going in-house offensive coordinator like they did for the DC position? Are they swinging for the fences for Eric Bieniemy? At the moment, there's not a lot. But if DeShaun Foster's trying to reach out, got a little bit of NFL connections considering he was already hired to be the Raiders running backs coach, he's putting out feelers. Now you go get Bieniemy, that would be quite the big swing when it comes to recruiting, signaling a shift to the times. And I think that would be that's a big sign. You go get Eric Bieniemy. I'm not sure the likelihood of that at the moment. I'm not sure about the talks, the validity, how deep that is at this moment. But you go get Bieniemy, that signals to recruits, hey, I came in and got one of the more well-known coaches when it comes to coaching offense. Now, you can debate about the Andy Reid's, who's calling plays, but this dude is in the locker room with someone with a team that's won multiple Super Bowls in this decade. How do you not want that if you're a college football player in your own locker room, even if it's for a year or two, because Bieniemy's been trying to get bigger and bigger opportunities from offensive coordinator job. He comes to UCLA, hey, I wouldn't be dissuaded, right? Now, there's people who talk about, is he a bad interview? It doesn't matter. DeShaun Foster is trying to signal the change, and he is already, with who he's rumored going after an offensive coordinator position, who he's trying to switch things up in the recruiting. That's a good sign of things to come. But now it's kind of also leads us into a little confusing moments. Speaking of the confusing, hey, brought back the stash. Is it cool? What we know is not cool, though, was UCLA basketball dropping the game at the buzzer to Utah. And it's a blown opportunity. And Mick Cronin says maybe no NIT. All that and more next on Locked On UCLA. It's okay. Grocery bills, they're getting super expensive these days. But they don't have to be, because you could start getting cash back on your grocery shopping with the free Ibotta app and get cash back every time you shop. The average Ibotta user earns about $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip. So you can buy that flat you're craving, you're eyeing, and that game you're dying to go to, or the fancy dinner you've been craving. Right now, Ibotta is listening and offering our listeners, you Locked On UCLA listeners, $5 just to try Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE when you register. Just go to the App Store, Google Play Store, download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's Ibotta, IBOTTA, Ibotta in the Google Play or App Store, and use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. All right, on this show, you get a lot of in-depth analysis, hot takes, right? Well, I want to give you my hottest take of the day. The best lineup in LA is the lineup of auto loans at Logix. Starting off with my favorites, they got proven and dependable new and used vehicle loans. You can count on these guys to give you low rates and save you big time bucks. Next up, an exciting new rookie sensation in their electric vehicle loans with super low rates and flexible payment terms. Rounding out the lineup, they've got their auto refinancing loans and lease buyout loans. Those guys can help you lower your monthly payments and get on the road to owning your car faster. It's a hot take, I know, but seriously, no one can beat the lineup at Logix. Visit your local Logix branch right here in LA or the surrounding areas and let one of their amazing team members take care of you. Just apply online in minutes at logixbanking.com. That's LOGIX, logixbanking.com. So what's Mick Cronin sitting here spewing about no NIT, the Bruins getting ready to play SC for the second time, a healthier USC with Isaiah Collier, which could definitely mean upset, I guess, with UCLA most likely favored in front of a rowdy Pauley Pavilion crowd. But what does this mean for the Bruins, who practically squandered a huge opportunity by the slimmest of margins to keep their NCAA at-large tournament hopes alive, right? They were national television, late Sunday, early Sunday evening on a holiday weekend. They're playing Utah. A chance to avenge that slaughter in Salt Lake City where they lost basically by 50. Had everything going against them in that part middle January, early January. And then UCLA finds himself creeping themselves back into relevance, contention, only losing the Arizona game where they were up 19. Had a similar, not control of a 19-point lead against Utah, but had an opportunity. And now you got Mick Cronin sitting here talking about, depends about the health. The extra games aren't mattering. There's nothing like the NCAA tournament. A little bit out of context there, but Mick Cronin only focuses about the NCAA tournament. And the first time he was asked about the NIT and his media availability was like, the vibe was, I don't care about the NIT. Our guys are banged up. And I think a bigger question, one, was the portal opens after Selection Sunday, which makes you wonder, who does Mick Cronin think is leaving and who's he going to go after in the portal? Because, hey, is UCLA more dangerous if they go on a run and make the tournament? Or if they miss it and Cronin's going to spend all those times, all those days trying to hit the portal and get a home run swing with a big name player trying to move up? I don't know. Mick Cronin's not a guy that's gone after a lot of portal guys. Stefanovic is the biggest one currently. You've got the likes of Johnny Juzang, right, who was in attendance, I believe, that UCLA-Utah game. That was one of the key core players, the core reasons UCLA made it to that Final Four, coming up on now 3 years ago, which is nuts. But the big thing is, what did UCLA cost themselves with that loss at Utah? Well, if you stayed up a little bit, maybe not too late, but it was a good game. Arizona, Washington State, quite the story. Now first place in the Pac-12 standings. What does that mean for UCLA that Washington State went to Arizona and beat them? One, Washington State's very good. The Bruins are going to have to go to Pullman pretty soon, go to Seattle. That is not an easy road trip. UCLA had a slim margin when it came to making the NCAA tournament. You beat Utah, who's been floating on the bubble. Then that gives you now, with Washington winning, Arizona losing, possibly top 15 teams left in the regular season to play if the Bruins went on this crazy run. And what was probably a 1% chance is now floated to a 0.1% chance in terms of an at-large berth. But the Bruins have to literally win every game and get to the Pac-12 tournament final and practically lose at the buzzer against a very good team for that to be the case, to even be considered to sniff the bubble. UCLA cost themselves. Right now, they're in fourth place by themselves, which is, considering where they were in the bottom of the Pac-12 at the beginning, fourth place with a winning record. Only 5 teams in this conference have a winning record. That's pretty good, because just about everybody has, like, Oregon State's upset Arizona, right, at the buzzer. There's so many different crazy things that have happened in this conference. On any given night, you're capable to be upset, especially on the road in this conference. UCLA, if they didn't lose, and Sebastian Mack didn't clock Brandon Carlson, you don't lose at the buzzer, the Bruins currently would be tied with Oregon for third. They would be a game and a half behind Wazoo for first, and a game behind Arizona with another game to play. So what is important there is if UCLA hadn't lost to Utah, and it's a lot to ask them to go win out, as that was already tough for them to do. They went out, they would be tied for first with wins against Arizona, wins against Wazoo, and I guess I haven't fully looked at the tiebreaker situation. All I know is that Wazoo has won 2 against Arizona. UCLA could have had a win against both Wazoo and Arizona. And Arizona, if they had been tied with UCLA and Wazoo atop the conference, would have had a 1-2 record. And you look at who could be the 1 seed, the 2 seed in the Pac-12 tournament, it was looking pretty dicey. But with UCLA losing now, that puts themselves on a weird trajectory. One, it hurts their at-large chances. But if they stay in 4th, ironically, it might be better for their bracketed chances in the Pac-12 tournament. If Arizona doesn't come back to win the conference in the regular season, you have Wazoo as the 1 seed, Arizona as the 2 seed, which I know Arizona is beatable, but that's still a very tough matchup for UCLA. The size, the ability to score. UCLA just can't always go pound for pound. Many times, twice in a 1-week span with the Wildcats as they play Arizona last week of the regular season, potentially in the conference tournament if the Bruins are lucky, they might get a better chance. The Bruins are trying to do in this Pac-12 tournament, get the easiest path possible, get a good bracket to set themselves up for a championship scenario to play in for an automatic berth to the NCAA tournament and be a bid stealer. Whereas you beat Utah, you get a quad, 2-ish win. You have 2 now top 15 teams, probably. Wazoo's not there yet, but if they win and then they play and they update the rankings, Wazoo's certainly going up the seed line in bracketology. They're working their way up into a much higher tier ranking-wise, considering they haven't been ranked in quite some time. They're a sneaky team. That's a team that was taking UCLA to the buzzer in late 22, early 23 with Muhammad Gay, and all those guys are left, right? Rodman, Gay, and Kyle Smith has turned that team around in a different way that Mick Cronin's been doing with this team. So the opportunity lost, it's heartbreaking, but they've also proven, the Bruins have, that the youth has learned. They have grown. It took them a bit. Maybe they're a bit banged up more than we realize, whether it's Sebastian Mack, who is not currently suspended to any knowledge of the game. So he's going to play. I'm not sure if Cronin will put him off the bench. He talked about during his media availability how he's going to, they showed film. You don't throw elbows above the shoulder, especially when the dude's like 7 foot. You throw an elbow above the shoulder. That's kind of intentional, regardless of the full intent or not. It's just going to get you ejected. Flagrant fouls, that's 2 free throws, the ball, personal foul. There's just so many things that can go wrong. In addition to a technical foul, there's so many things that were so goofy in this UCLA-Utah game that happened almost a week ago. The Bruins cost themselves, but they could put that away and they have to focus on a sneaky matchup with USC, who's looking to go upset the Bruins in Pauley Pavilion. That's not been beside Andy Enfield before. You bring in Isaiah Collier, a team that actually beat Utah, right? A team that went out and beat Utah and has a chance to try and even up the season series, even though the Bruins they just absolutely smacked USC in Galen Center. I remember being there, shouting out some 8 claps. Bruins can get on a good roll, right? And what started this roll? They lost to Arizona, heartbreaker, got on a good little winning streak. It started with a win against USC. The emotions of beating your rival can carry the Bruins from the end of February through the early weeks of March and into the Pac-12 tournament, hopefully on another hot streak with a good bracket and a good seed. You want to avoid Arizona. You probably want to avoid Wazoo. There's just no real good thing. The Bruins just want the easiest first-round game and semifinal, and then to play themselves into the tournament via the Pac-12 tournament. That's where they are. They've showcased growth. Now, what can they do to play themselves into a tournament scenario? Because Cronin doesn't seem like he's loving the NIT idea. Maybe that changes when it comes down to it, but he wants to attack the portal. He wants to attack the tournament. And the Bruins got to go attack USC, which we'll be excited about. Hopefully the Bruins bring out the brooms and beat SC again. You know who took advantage of an opportunity, though? You know who went out and vanquished their Utah Demons? That was the UCLA women's team, who just, on national television, in the middle of the week, bam, wiped the floor with Utah and said, hey, see you naysayers that are putting the UCLA women in a non-national championship contender tier? I have some words for you. They're not frauds. I believe they are a national championship contender tier 1, healthy and ready to go. And I think that Utah game proved it. Next on Locked On UCLA. Go get some buckets with your first bet with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with winning any $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same game parlays, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. Maybe you want to check out the UCLA SC number. Go check it out. Maybe pick the Bruins. Go get some love. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, sometimes it's a big game for whoever on the UCLA women. It's been important to see the return of Lauren Betts and how much she means for UCLA, how much she helped dominate Utah because she had a big game. The first time UCLA played, I'm not sure what went into it, but Lauren Betts did not have the game. She did not play at the end when the Bruins took Utah to overtime in Salt Lake City and lost by 13, but it was a Utah basic buzzer beater that forced the game to go past regulation. It was great to see against the preseason conference favorites. They're bringing back Alyssa Peely. They have some talent. They did lose a key player earlier in the season, like UCLA lost Emily Bissoir. But to see Betts playing really well and dominate, the difference between when Lauren Betts was on the floor in this game against Utah, plus 27, 14 points, 6 rebounds, 3 block shots. She is a huge dominant force. And yes, I know UCLA has been struggling, hovering around the middle part of the Pac-12 conference. But for me, after that UCLA 82-52 win against Utah, beating them by 30, I think the Bruins have played like 8 or 9 top 25 teams currently all the way down to Princeton. And they've beaten like at least 8 of them. I was counting the other day. From the teams ranked ahead of them in the top 10, look at Ohio State, number 2 in the country. The Bruins went on the road or up 20 in the fourth quarter. That's the number 2 team in the country, right? You talk about Stanford. Well, the Bruins weren't healthy. All right, we can worry about that. But Colorado ahead of them, or close nearby in the rankings. Bruins went on the road and beat them. UCLA now is a 30-point win against Utah. UCLA had a pretty solid victory against USC, and the one they lost was a game in which Lauren Betts didn't even start. Remember that. That first loss of the season, Lauren Betts didn't start. It had, I believe it was just said as an illness. And then she missed some time with what was also described by Corey Close as an illness. So what may have been plaguing Lauren Betts earlier, hopefully isn't now, and she's healthy. But I think there's only in my mind 1 or 2 times this season where UCLA has been beaten on the court and they've lost those games. That sounds like a dumb statement, but what I'm trying to say is it's not like the other team came out and beat them. UCLA blew those games. Like against Utah. They fought back. Utah played a really good game. They played their hearts out. But UCLA had come back and taken the lead and just gave up a wide open layup. Who wasn't in, right? Lauren Betts wasn't playing at the mostly part of the end there. Didn't have the best of her games. Later in the week, the Bruins don't have Betts, right? That was after the Colorado-Utah weekend. All of a sudden, she missed those next couple of games, right? So what was important there is UCLA at the buzzer. Oregon State, who was without their best player, mind you. Reagan Beers got hurt early in that game, and then Oregon State played a whale of a game. Took UCLA shot for shot. The Bruins blew that game with a 7-point lead. Had 2 leads late in the final 15 seconds. Couldn't hold on to any of them. And that was the one time, in my mind, you add in the Utah game, the winners 2 times. UCLA, I think, when at full strength, has actually been beaten. And it took a buzzer-beating shot in front of a rowdy Oregon State crowd and a buzzer beater in front of a rowdy Utah crowd on big-time national television. Those are the only 2 times they've lost this year at full strength. Yes, Betts did play against USC. The Bruins played terrible in front of a sellout crowd at Galen. But, if Lauren Betts didn't start that game, it's a little different. And the Bruins already have a win against Oregon State. That was before the hype of the Beavers became real. The Bruins won that game by close to double figures. UCLA truly controlled, had some decent defense multiple times on Juju. And the Stanford game, we will just never know until they meet the Pac-12 tournament, or dare I say the NCAA tournament, if they meet 1 more time or 2 more times, whenever that may be. And we get a Cameron Brink, Lauren Betts showdown, like I think the women's college basketball world, honestly, I want to see that. See 2 big-time shot blockers, 2 big post presences going at it. UCLA is a big-time tier. The story of the UCLA-Utah game, though, was the shooting of Londynn Jones. 70% from 3. UCLA as a team beyond Londynn Jones went 2 of 13 from downtown. The Bruins were not hitting, whether it was Osborne, Kiki Rise, nobody was hitting. Duga Leach, no. But you bring in Londynn Jones, who had a career high in points, 23, had 21 points just from 3 points alone, plus 28 on the floor. If she's hitting, the Bruins just don't lose. You bring in a Lauren Betts combo when she's getting easy buckets. She was 6 of 10, 60%, one of the best players in the country when it comes to shooting percentage. You bring in Jones, who was lights out from downtown. The Bruins aren't going to lose those games. You dominate. The Bruins dominated this game. I was watching. I was like, wait a minute. Plus 12 points in the paint. They played great defense. You're not going to win any game, I believe, against a top-tier opponent when you committed 20 turnovers. So Utah definitely played as poorly as they probably could have. But I think a lot of that has to do with the return and the improvement of UCLA since Betts has returned in her health. When Londynn Jones is hitting from 3, dominant, and just how much the defense is that much better when they have everybody back. Now the Colorado game will be an equally tough matchup. It'll be their chance to get revenge on UCLA. The Bruins sweep the mountain schools. I know the chance for a Pac-12 regular season crown isn't there, but this is certainly 1A, 1B, maybe 1C, depending on how much you want to go with how stacked this Pac-12 conference is. I don't think the Bruins are on a fraudulent tier. Now, can they make an Elite 8, run into a tough matchup? This is a team I truly believe that has a chance to go further in the NCAA era of women's college basketball than they've ever gone before. And with Corey Close at the helm, I love the adjustments. I love what they did against Utah in this game, against preseason favorites. Seeing what happened last time when Utah had a bunch of threes against the Bruins, the Utes only went 3 of 15 this time. Last time, the Utes at home, timely clutch threes, just about everything like a buzzsaw hit them. The Bruins said, no, not this time. Now, I wonder what the adjustments look like against Colorado. You have the extra day. They had to play in the shorter week coming back from Oregon, but then they get an extra day to prepare for the Buffs, and then all of a sudden keep things rolling for Pac-12 tournament time. Because I'm looking, and you see the teams that get upset, right? You see, oh, wait, who are the teams? There's Iowa lost again. You had NC State losing. UCLA is clearly, I think, a top 10 team, top 5 team. And I just can't be persuaded otherwise when maybe outside the Stanford game with no bets, it's hard to find a time where they've been truly outplayed, outmuscled, and just didn't look like they want to be on the court. That just hasn't happened this year. And the only time that happened, their best player, their most important piece, the piece that is making them a good team into a great contending team, just wasn't on the court. And I think the Utah game is a reason and proof that UCLA is big time this year. No, I can't wait for the next time. All right. Can't wait for the next time on Locked On UCLA. So get your hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.